Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Suno Kahani, where we were reading Red Flags and the Rishtas by Radhika Agarwal. So today we are going to read chapter 18, He Loves Me Not. But मैंने 70 चैप्टर तक ऑलरेडी वीडियो अपलोड कर दी है, सो यू कैन गो वॉच देम और लिसन वट एवर यू वांट टू डू. और आप लोग अपनी कोई भी फेवरेट बुक कमेंट कर सकते हैं ताकि मैं नेक्स्ट वीडियो उसी बुक के ऊपर बनाऊँ और आप लोग तक प्रोवाइड करूँ. पूरी कोशिश रहेगी मेरी. बट आप लोग प्लीज़ मेरे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए, लाइक कीजिए और अपनी कोई सी भी फेवरेट बुक आप लोग कमेंट कीजिए. वो मेरी जिम्मेदारी है कि मेरे को कहाँ से आपको सुनाना है पढ़ के. ओके, सो लेट्स स्टार्ट. आई स्पेंड द नेक्स्ट 5 days ट्राइंग टू obliterate the ridiculous notion that I had fallen for Adar Chauhan, but the more I fought to deny the idea, the closer to the truth it began to seem. I could not wrap my head around the fact that the same man I would consider my nemesis a few weeks ago was now suddenly the most important person in my life. I used to detest having to interact with him, and now I stared at my phone for hours, willing him to text me, but he never did. I had not heard a peep out of him after that hasty phone call when he would told me about his engagement. I opened his Instagram profile every day hoping to get a hint of what was going on in his life, but he maintained his social media silence even in the face of his successful love story. When Saturday rolled around and I still had not managed to dismiss him from my thoughts, I picked up my phone and rang him. He did not answer. I tossed my phone on the bed, disheartened, and a sane person would have taken his silence as a sign of lack of interest, bitterly accepted the rejection, and moved on. But it had been a few days since I had lost my sanity. I desperately needed someone to talk to, a sounding board of sorts. I had considered dialing V's number many times in the past week, but my ego had not let me. Why could not she call? And so, in the absence of a rational voice stopping me from making a bigger fool out of myself, I called him again and again. I left him text after text, hoping he would respond to at least one. I even dropped him an email on his official ID. The hours passed, but I did not hear back from him. I knew I was being unreasonable, but I could not bear to give up on this without first speaking to him. I just wanted to have a word. Okay, I wanted a lot more, but this much I needed. So I did the only after thing I could think of. I made a trip to his flat. The bell continued to ring as I waited for someone to open the door. After the fifth ring, I figured it had to be one of two things. A. He knew I was at the door and wanted nothing to do with me. B. Nobody was home. Think, Annie. Who would know where he is? That's when it struck me. I opened my phone book and dialed his brother. The first 3 times I called, there was no answer, but then he called me back. Ananya, hi, you called? I could barely hear him over the commotion. I breathed a sign of relief. Karan, thank God. I need to speak to your brother. Where is he? Sorry, what? He had to shout to be heard. I can't hear you properly. Is Adar with you? I insinuated every word. Yes, I am at his engagement party. I zeroed in one of the sound in the background. The whole DJ congratulating relatives and laughter. If there was ever a sign from the universe to stop trying to talk to Adar, it was this one. But I was way past listening to the stupid universe. Tell me the address, I said. Huh? I could tell he was wondering if I could simply hang up on him. Please, Karan, I promise I won't make any scene. I just need to speak to him for 5 minutes. Something happened between you two, didn't it? He said knowingly. He took my silence as an affirmative and told me he would give me the address if I promised to wait outside. There was no way he was letting me into the premises. He would bring Adar to be instead. The engagement party was taking place in Chhatarpur Farms. I got behind the wheel of my dad's car and drove like I would never driven before. I was certain that I would have at least 3 speeding challans waiting for me in the mail in the coming week. I did not have an invitation card to show at the gate of the farmhouse, and I certainly did not look like I was a guest in my ice cream stained sweatpants, so the guard did not immediately let me in. I rang Karan again as I waited at the gate, and a few minutes later I saw him signaling to the guard to let me pass. I swerved into the parking lot and quickly parked between two sedans. Oh, That was surprisingly smooth, Karan said. He was waiting for me when I jumped out of the car. I looked back at my dad's Swift, realizing that I would reverse parked it in record time today. I have been practicing, I said, thinking about how I would be playing the simulation game Adar had installed on my phone every night to feel closer to him. Pathetic, I know. Okay, wait here, he said. I'll try and pull him out for a bit. I nodded, watching him disappear around the corner. The engagement, I figured was taking place in the lawns to the right of the parking lot. I began to inch closer towards it, hoping to catch a glimpse of what was going on inside. This was all happening too quickly. I would barely had the time to process my feelings for him, even though I had known him for over 2 months. How was it that he would decide to marry someone he just met 2 weeks ago? Was he really such a catch? I saw Karan dragging his brother towards me. Adar was arguing with him, gesturing wildly with his hands, but when he saw me, he froze. What's going on? He asked, looking from his brothers to me. Karan shrugged, slapped his brother's shoulder, and left, indicating that he was on his own. I walked over to him, my knees feeling weak with apprehensions. It was strange to love and hate the sight of a man with the same blinding intensity. On the one hand, I could not stop admiring how good his broad shoulders and strong chest looked in the black and gold sherwani, but the thought that he was dressed up like that to put a ring on another woman's finger made me want to burn it off his skin. Why haven't you been I why haven't you been answering my calls? I asked when I close enough. I am getting engaged today, Ananya, he said, looking down at me. I have not had the time. Can we go somewhere else, please? I asked to talk. He placed his hands on his hips, looking around. I can't just go with you. I need to get back inside. He waited for me to say something, and when I did not, he began to turn around. Okay, no, wait. I lurched forward and grabbed his arm, saying, I need to tell you something. He neither moved nor pulled his arm away. I I began saying, I can't stop thinking about you. He turned his face to look at me, his arm still firmly in my grasp. Ananya. No, let me finish, I said, stepping closer to him so I could slide my hand down his forearm and place it in his. I know you think that night was a mistake, but I don't. I was not drunk. You were not drunk. We knew exactly what we were doing and we wanted to do it so very much. He let me and wind my fingers with his as I continued talking. I spent so much of my time hating you that have never realized when I fall for you. A shadow crossed his features. I desperately wanted to know what he was thinking, but his eyes did not give anything away. Please say something, I urged him. I can't do this, Ananya. He sounded pained. Not right now. From the distance, we heard a woman shouting his name. Adar's mother was standing at the parking slot entrance. I have to go, he said, pulling his hand out of my grip. I am sorry. Why are you doing this? I raised my voice. Tears began to sting my eyes and threatened to spill onto my face. What do you suggest I do? He spun around and demanded. Don't go. So I should abandon my chance at marrying a nice girl, starting a family for what? He asked aggressively. For a girl who can barely go on 2 dates with the same guy, let alone think about marriage? His words stung and I felt my vision blur with tears as I said, for a girl who is telling you she loves you? He scoffed and said, I am too old to play these games with you, Ananya. His mother shouted for him again and he began walking away. I thought about how a few months ago he would sit across from me and in my home asking for my hand in marriage. I did not want to marry him then. I did not want to marry him now, and it was too early to tell if I would ever want to marry him, but watching him walk out of my life broke my heart harder than anything ever had before. In my life was a rom-com. I would have risked it all, gotten down on my knee and proposed to him. He would have smiled, bent down next to me and pulled me into his arms, but I knew by now that rom-coms were a lie. However strongly I felt for this guy, I could not sacrifice my own beliefs and values to keep his interest in me alive. I could not ask him to marry me but to prove to him that I did, in fact, love him. And so I held my breath as he took step after step, adding to the growing distance between us. My brain weird as it was repeated. Palat, as he walked away, but he did not turn. He put an arm around his frowning mother and left the parking lot. But not before I heard her say, "Was not that Mrs. Kapoor's daughters?" Chapter 19. A Clean Slate. There is a stark distinction between the days leading up to a heartbreak and the ones that follow it. Before heartbreak, Before heartbreak, you have many sources of pain like fear, anticipation, etc. After heartbreak, the only thing that can hurt you is the past. So, if you find a way to block that out, you are all good. Before Adar had so coldly turned me away on the day of his engagement, I had been burdened with the weight of hope, but ever since that day, I felt freed. Losing hope was not my Losing hope was not such a bad thing after all. So, yes, personally, I much preferred in my life in the autumn months of 2021 after heartbreak to the summer of 2021 before heartbreak. Now that I was a jobless, friendless, and loveless, the only people I was forced to interact with were my parents. And even though they were sick and tired of me zombing around the house, they could not find it in themselves to be assholes to me. About 10 days after heartbreak, they sat me down in the living room. We may not say it very often, my dad was saying, but we love you very much, Anu. Both of them sat awkwardly at the edge of the brown sofa. My mom had her hands in her lap, while my dad had placed his uneasily next to his slides. After having watched me sulk and mope for all these days, their concern had at last won over their discomfort. Okay, I darted my eyes between them. You know you can talk to us, right? He continued talking in measured words. I am fine, Papa, I said, in a pinch of irritation finding its way into my tone. You have not stepped out of the house in days. You quit your job and you have not spoken to your friends or anyone else about it. You have barely even said a word to us all week. He said, his calm demeanor cracking it at the edges. My mother joined in and said, "Are you depressed?" A short gasp escaped her lips as she said the word, and she looked down at her hands, mumbling, "I don't know what I will do if something happens to you." My dad gave her a warning look, but her anxious rumble was already underway. This woman in my kitty, her daughter slit her own wrist and wounded up in the hospital. Sarita, please. My dad cut her off and said, "What your mother means to say is we are here for you, whether you want to talk to us or someone else." I was overcome with a guilt and love of equal proportion as I realized that my parents were proposing therapy in a household that had never had an open and healthy discussion about mental health. This was huge. In my parents' circles, the words depression and anxiety were scorned at first world problems, I would hear them say in the past, and yet they were sitting in front of me trying to help me crawl out of the deep, dark pit I would fallen in. It was too much for me to take in. In the last few days, I had convinced myself that nobody cared about me, and so it did not matter if I wasted my life away staying in bed throughout the day and talking to the ceiling during the night. I would forgotten that there were two people in the world who would always love me, even if I was being a divine pain in the ass. I caught my parents off guard when I burst into tears. It took them a few seconds to run over to me and wrap their arms around me. But as I dissolved into their warm, protective embrace, I began to believe what they were saying. It was all going to be okay. I was going to be alright. The next morning, my mother entered my room and opened all the curtains, letting the sunlight in. Even though I should been awakened for the last couple of hours, I had to squint to adjust my eyes to the light. I felt like an exposed vampire. "Good morning, Anu," she said, her face deadpan. The implication was clear. It was very way past down, and I would not be allowed to sleep in. I kicked my legs and groaned loudly, but deep down I was grateful for the push. The warm shower was invigorating. I stayed in there until my geyser ran out of the hot water, watching the droplets trickle down my skin and soak it with the life. When I stepped out of the washroom with my hair in a towel, I paused to take a good look at my room. This was the room I had grown up in. In my teenage years, I would redecorate it every other year, pasting poster of the latest boy band over the previous ones. Justin Bieber had replaced the Jonas Brothers before John Mayer had resigned supreme. The photos pinned on the board over my study desk belonged to school friends I had not spoken to in a decade. My bookshelf did not carry a single title I should read in the last 3 years. They were all sitting in the cardboard box under my bed, waiting to be rearranged. I signed and removed the towel from my wet hair. It was time. Time. The thing with a rock bottom is that it gets boring. At some point, there is nothing left to do but climb up. And so I began overturning my teenage room. The person who had done it up with so much love did not exist anymore. I had not been that girl for a long time, and I was tired of living in a stranger's room. It felt strangely cathartic to rip out of the posters from my bedroom wall. I began tossing meaningless mementos, photos of forgotten friends, and old magazines into the trash. It's amazing how much garbage you can accumulate over a period of 10 years. I found broken earrings, old journals, slam books, chargers for every phone I had ever owned, birthday cards from old classmates, at least 5 bottles of frozen Fevicol, CDs and DVDs of annual day performance from school, along with leaking lipsticks and handbags that had been ruined by dust and grime. After I was done stuffing everything I did not need to into large black trash bags in my room, looked pitifully bare. It had been robbed of all its personality, and in its place were sad, empty walls and naked shelves and tables. But when I looked at it, I saw a clean slate, an opportunity to create a version of my current life rather than losing myself in the life I had once lived. I sat down on the foot of my bed. I stuck of old Polaroids in my hand. Most of them had been taken out about 3 or 4 years ago after we had gifted me a Polaroid camera for one of my birthdays. Apart from a couple of photos with my parents, all of them had we in them. We feeding me a slice of birthday cake, we and I sitting in a college classroom when she would come to visit me. We and I dancing in a bar, we and I with our arms around each other giggling at a joke I did not remember. I went through the photos, my eyes watering as the memories washed over me. And then I found a photo I could not quite put down. It had been taken in a bar in a Hotchkiss on the night we had first met Saurav. He had been out with his then girlfriend and group of friends, and at some point he had struck up a conversation with my friend. It had been an innocent encounter, but the two of them had exchanged number and later began to date. Saurav had dumped his girlfriend for we, and they would started their own love story shortly thereafter. I remembered that we would ask the bartender to take the photo I was now holding in my hand, and he would done a shoddy job of it, not bothering to adjust the setting of the Polaroid camera. As a result, all four faces in the photo were dark and almost unrecognizable. But the more I studied the photo, the surer I became that something was off about it. Saurabh stood in the middle, his right arm around me, who was holding onto my hand, and his arm around another woman, his ex. I realized with a start that I had seen her recently. She had been in his car the other day. Ever since we were kids, Virinda's two-story bungalow in Greater Kailash had unweird and awed me uninformedly. I still remember in third grade, she had invited me over for a sleepover for the first time. I had marveled at the lush green lawns outside, the chandelier in the living room, the spiral staircase that I had only ever seen in K3G before, the preposterous size of her bedroom. How many people sleep in here? I asked her innocently. Today, as I waited for her under the same crystal chandelier in the living room, I was equally overwhelmed by the population around me. I recalled the days after that first sleepover when I had tried to distance myself from Vi because I was too ashamed to let her see the reality of my home. I did not want to invite her over, but she had persisted, and when I finally brought her to my three-bedroom flat, she was completely unfazed. She had jumped onto my bed and started wrestling with my stuffed toys, making herself at home. I had learned that day that the financial disparity between us existed only in my head. It was my burden to carry. Hi, Vee's voice yanked me out of my head, and I looked up. She was standing at the top of my spiral staircase, wearing a fuzzy lavender bathrobe. Hi, I said. Can I come up? She nodded and waited for me to join her at the top. Up close, she looked different. Her eyes were heavier, as if she had not been sleeping too much. Her skin had blemishes on it, freshly red after her warm shower, and her mouth was somber and unsmiling. In our lifelong friendship, we had never gone 3 weeks without speaking to each other. I wondered if it had affected her as deeply as it had me. She led me to her room where I closed the door behind me. How are you? She asked, her eyes blank. We sat down on the patchwork couch in front of her king size poster bed. The door to her balcony was open and the light from outside light up the entire room. I said, you. She shrugged. मैं? Our eyes locked and I gave her a hesitant smile. She did not return it. I cleared my throat and said, I need to tell you something. She glanced at me sideways but did not say anything. I saw Saurabh with a girl a while ago, I began. They were in his car. Honestly, it seemed completely innocent and I did not think anything of it at all. But then yesterday I cleaned out of my room and found this. I took out the Polaroid from my jeans pocket and offered it to her. She took the photograph from me and turned it over in her hands, uninterested. You finally cleaned out your room. I ignored her comment and pointed at the girl in the photo. That's his ex. V. The same toxic one who kept trying to win him back for months. Her face was expressionless and she remained mum. You don't think it's weird he is hanging out with her? I asked, placing a hand on her knee. Are not you worried they might be? She blinked rapidly and then looked away. Oh my god, I exclaimed, reading her silence. She tried to hide her face behind her hands, but I jumped from the sofa and crouched in front of her, peeling them off. Verinda, I said, talk to me, love. He is been. I think it started a few months ago, she managed to say before dissolving into a puddle of sobs. I clutched her to my chest, wrapping my arms around her back. Her tears soaked through my cotton t-shirt within seconds. Hey, I whispered, it's going to be okay. I'm here now. It took her a good 20 minutes to stop crying. I went downstairs to make her a hot cup of tea, and when I got back, she was huddled in a ball on her bed. I saw her messages on his phone 2 months ago, she said, sipping from the mug. At first, I was in a denial. I scouted closer to her, listening intently. But then it started to become a little too obvious. He would not text me back for hours. His phone would be busy at night and he was always away at work. Her voice was shaking as she said. So I confronted him and I asked. He admitted it, she said, the hint of a tear beginning to ball in her eyes. Apparently, I had been putting too much pressure on him to get married, and this is how he decided to cope. My heart went out to her, and I felt a fire brewing in my belly. I was furious. That asshole, I fumed. Please tell me you dumped him. Tears flowed down her cheeks, and she wiped them away with a sleeve of her bathrobe. I can't. I'm not. I'm not strong enough. I stared at her, dumbstruck. A part of me could not believe that this was the same best friend I would known of months ago. My beautiful, confident, talented Virinda. She resembled a broken remnant of that girl. You are the strong one, she said through her tears. You always have been. I am just the privileged one. I reached out and squeezed her hand, and the guilt from my words, the night of our fight slicing through my gut. I did not mean anything I said that day. I was talking through my ass. No, she sniffed as she said. You did, and you were right. I have had it easy. It's not. But I have also had it so. so hard she let out another sob and said, "My boyfriend is cheating on me and I still can't bring myself to leave him. I am too scared to follow my dreams and start my own fashion line." Every day when I enter the boutique, I can see the look of disappointment on my mother's face. "I am a coward, Annie," she said, regaining her composure. Her words bore a hole through me, and I began to feel like I was going under. "Why the hell are you crying?" she snickered through her tears. "Because," I said, controlling my sob, "because I can't believe I let you keep all that bottled up inside you for so long." She threw her arms around me and we held on to each other for dear life, bawling and giggling like utter maniacs. "You have to dump his ass," I told her later when we had sobered down to have a glass of wine on her balcony. "I know," she said, taking a deep breath. "You are going to be just fine, I said, holding her gaze with intent. "Delhi boys are in for a treat." She laughed, playfully punching my shoulder. "Speaking of Delhi boys," I could tell she was choosing her words carefully. "I'm sorry about yours." Their engagement photos were all over Instagram, so I was not surprised we knew. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm fine," I cleared my throat, uncomfortable that the spotlight was moving towards me. She took the wine glass from me and placed it on the bamboo table behind us. "I thought we decided on no more secrets," she said, placing her hands on my both shoulders to make me face her. "No, really, I'm okay. As okay as I can be, I guess." I took a deep breath and said, "I told him how I felt, so at least I don't have to wonder. "You did what?" she asked, dropping her hands in a shock. "I told him I loved him," I said, a small smile creeping onto my face. "On the day of his engagement? Oh my god, Annie, you're such a trip," she said, squealing. "So fucking filmy." "Yeah," I mumbled, except for the part where I did not get the guy. She pouted, placing an arm around my shoulder. "Fuck him then." We picked up our drinks, sipping quietly as we admired the clean, wide roads of central Delhi with the setting sun disappearing behind them. Chapter 20. Work in Progress. In all my 27 years of existence, I had found nothing I despised more than exercise. Not to be overly dramatic, but the insides of a gym reminded me of a torture chamber, dingy basements with a fancy equipment designed to instill dread, pain, and horror. And only those with nerves of steel and unbreakable willpower lived to see the day. It's safe to say that I was not one of those people, and yet I had been dragging myself to the gym in my complex every day for the past week, hoping that I would enjoyed it little more than the previous day. So far, I had had zero luck. I thanked my trainer for yet another session of abuse and ill-earned punishment and picked up my duffel bag to leave. As soon as I opened the door of the clubhouse, I was abused by a fury creature. The dog, unleashed as he was, jumped onto my torso, leaving imprints of his paws on my neon green tank top. "Charlie, no!" A woman came running around the corner. She gasped animatedly when she saw me. "God, I'm so sorry," she said, peeling him off me and clipping his lace back on. "That's quite all right," I said, patting the golden retriever. "He's a friendly one, isn't he?" "Too friendly, if you ask me." The woman, who must have been her early 30s, seemed embarrassed by her pet's lack of manners, as if one cue. Charlie jumped and planted a giant wet lick right on my mouth. "Charlie, off," she commanded, tugging off forcefully on his lace and stepping between us. She began apologizing profusely, but I cut her off. "I don't mind. Dogs don't need consent like the rest of us." The woman let out a hearty laugh and I joined it. "I am Ira," she said, sticking out of her free hand. She had short hair that showed off her delicate attached earlobes. Two intricate jhumkas hung up from them. "Ananya," I said, shaking her hand. "Did you move here recently?" "Yes, a month ago," she said. Charlie had lost interest in me and was now trying to chase a grasshopper. Ira was heading in the direction of my house, so I walked with her. I found out she lived alone with her dog in the building next to mine. She was new to Delhi. Her recent divorce, coupled with a new job offer, had led her here from Jaipur. It's like starting over, she said when I asked her how she was liking it so far. I told her I was in the process of doing something similar myself, having quit my job. So, what's the plan now? She asked, seemingly genuine interested. It felt odd to be talking about my life with a stranger. Maybe it was the comforting presence of her dog or her ease smile, but something about Ira made me feel like I could tell her things. Well, I have got a list to get my life on tracks, I said knowingly how silly that must have sounded. Oh, I love lists, she said, her voice cheery. Take anything off it yet? I thought back to how we and I had sat through that night, making our separate to do lists to make sense of our futures. The first thing on her was break up with sorrow, while mine started with finding something you love. I did not know if I was going to love it, but I had decided I wanted to pursue interior design. I got an entry level job with a design firm this morning. Actually, I told her, that's amazing, she said, flashing me a brilliant smile. Congratulations, I said. I gave up my promotion and and an established career in my events to be someone assistant in the field I have very little professional knowledge about. I was not bitter, but a part of me did feel like I was being hastily stupid. Hey, it's never too late for trying something new. We are all a work in progress, right? Work in progress. I thought to myself, I like that. We stood in front of my porch for a few more minutes, chatting. After a bit, Charlie began to get restless and she walked away, but not without promising that she would stop by later for a cup of coffee. What are you so bubbly about? My mother asked when I entered the house. I pecked her on the cheek and mumbled nothing before taking off her my room. The list was waiting for me at my study table. I ticked number 8 off the sheet of paper. Make a new friend. I held the seat in front of my face, allowing the letters to dance in front of my eyes. To anyone watching from afar, it might have seemed like I had lost my plot. I was celebrating the most absurd things, like having a job that would pay me one-fifth of what I had been making at TMJ, but these wins, teeny as they might have been, were baby steps in the right direction. I allowed myself to gloat over some of my other victories from the list. Find a job, redecorate my room, delete Adar's Chauhan contacts. Some of other things were harder to do. Move on, uninstall Tinder, go for a therapy session, break unhealthy dating patterns. But I knew I had to start somewhere. I had been putting off uninstalling my dating app for a few days. I had been dependent on it for so many things in the last couple of years: validation, action, entertainment, free food and drinks, basically everything other than what I should have been looking for on it. I needed a break. I long pressed the familiar red and white app logo on my phone and hovered over the uninstall button when my heart sent a plea to my brain. A couple of swipes for old time's sake. I lay down on my bed, stuffing two pillows under my neck, and began swiping. I could not deny that I would miss this world, where I could club men into distinct categories based on their carefully curated profiles and badly written bios. I began saying my goodbyes as I swiped left on the pool of men in front of me. Goodbye, 420 friendly men. Goodbye, friends. Versus the office fans. Goodbye. Not here for the hookup, guys. Goodbye. Not active here. DMs on Instas. Dudes. Goodbye. Sexuals, bibliophiles, polymorids, sexual pickup line users, and dick pic enthusiasts. And then suddenly, without warning, an all too familiar face popped up on my screen. He only had one photo, a selfie. It had been taken in a park or an open area, perhaps after a morning run. Beds of sweat were forming on his forehead, making his thick curls sticky. His dense eyebrows were creased together, shielding his whiskey brown eyes, which pierced right through the screen at me. I tapped on his profile to read his bio, looking for a teeny 27-year-old woman with frizzy hair, commitment issue, and fierce competitive spirit. I am a simple sweet guy, but I have been referred to as the asshole, the enemy, and the devil of reincarnate by said teeny woman. If you know her, tell her I am looking for her. If you are her, swipe right and give me a chance to explain, please. My heart sped up as I gazed at the face of a man who had rejected me. What was he doing on Tinder? Was this a fake profile? Why would anyone make a fake profile of a nobody? Was someone trying to play a hideous prank on me? The question zoomed through my head, leaving me no room to breathe. Stop, I scolded myself. It does not matter. I had decided to move on, and whatever unfunny game the universe was playing with me right now, I did not have to participate in it. I'll just swipe left and be done with it, I decided. And then, at the last moment, my fingers rebelled and bent to other way. It's a match, the app proudly declared. I froze. I got up from my bed, abandoning the phone on the mattress. I stared, pacing on my newly redone room, dragging my feet on the fresh grey rug. I would laid out in front of my bed. What the hell was happening? A ping went off, and my whole body reacted to it with the alarm bells of its own. I approached my phone with a caution as if it was a bomb that might go off and at any second. You have one message from Adar. I opened it. That took you a while. I gawked at the message, trying to make sense of it. What are you doing here? Waiting for you to find me? I cursed out loud, placing a hand on my heart to make sure it was still beating. Why? What do you mean? So I can tell you what a fool I have been. The words swam in front of my eyes, making it impossible for me to understand or respond to them. After minutes, the screen lighted up with another text from him. I called it off. The wedding. My knees gave up gave out under me, and I collapsed onto the bed. I caught sight of my face in the mirror on my dressing table. I looked like someone had kicked my metaphorical nuts. Why? I wanted to ask him, but I was too proud. I would put my heart on the line of this man, and he had stomped all over it. I had gone to him with my love, and he had turned me away. Is this some sort of twist joke? Who is this? Are you catfishing me? Of course not. It's me. Then why didn't you just call me? Why all this? Because you deserve a meet cute like the one in all those movies. His poor knowledge of the romance genre was truly appealing. I wondered if this was the right time to point out that this would not qualify as a meet cute. Adar and I had met ton of times already, and our story had gone through a steep rank. If anything, this was the grand romantic gesture that typically came at the end. I considered showing up at your door with a boombox to surrender, surrender, surrender you, surrender you, but it did not feel right, and this did. I just thought it would be poetic considering you love for dating apps and all. I'm sorry. Did I fuck it up? I badly wanted to answer in the affirmative. In fact, I wanted to unmatch him, blocking everywhere and never give him another thought. God knows he deserved it, but I could not ignore the little dance my instincts had begun performing inside me. I owned it to them to find out what he wanted to say. What do you want from me? After that, he stopped responding. Second turned into minutes, but the familiar sound of a notification refused to oblige me. I wondered if I had said something wrong or if he would simply decided I was not worth the trouble. But after 40 painful minutes of self doubt and anxiety, my phone pinged again. I want you to come outside. What? Like right now? Apprehension spread through my guts as I reread his text, wondering what to make of it. I had spent too many hours trying to heal my heart to allow it to fall prey once more to the incurable disease of hope. I hovered in my empty living room, too scared to open the front door. I was fully aware that another disappointment would cause devastating damage to my spirit, but a part of me, the one that had grown up watching SRK movies and dreaming about my own happy ending, begged me to go outside. After 10 minutes of agonizing conflict, I unlatched the door and peeked out. At first glance, there was no sign of him. My mother's carefully tended garden was empty, glowing in the rays of the setting sun. I craned my neck further, which is when I saw him leaning against his red Kia. He was looking right at me. I shut the door behind me and slowly made my way to him. Still in my workout ties and neon tank top, I knew I must have resembled a sweaty, brightly clad pig. I was certainly no Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman when Richard Gere showed up at her doorstep. Adar, on the other hand, was as charming as ever. He wore a full blue linen kurta and faded jeans. His curls were longer than I had ever seen them, spilling over his forehead in a gorgeous mess. He uncrossed his arms and straightened up his tall, delicious body as I reached him. How did you know I would be home? I asked her, eager to get the first word in. I wanted to fool my brain into thinking I was in control of this conversation. I took a chance, he said. It's a Saturday, so I figured you would not be at work. I nodded, then said, I quit my job. He gave me a warm smile. That's great. I know you were not happy there. If he expected me to return his warmth, he was in her for a surprise. I stayed silent, feeling him studying my face for a sign of emotions. I hoped that I would be able to maintain the facade of indifference under his scrutiny. He cleared his throat and said, I wanted to say you something, and it did not feel right to text it, so I come to see you. What? My mouth had dried up and the word came out as a croak. He took a deep breath. It took me a while, but I know now that she was never the one for me, he said, trying to find and hold my gaze. You are. Abruptly, I turned away from him. In the last few weeks, I had played out countless versions of this scene in my head. I had pictured him here seeking me out, saying these very words, but instead of joy and triumph, I had expected to wash over me. I was overcome with anger and resentment. It was too much. Without another word, I began walking in the direction of my house. Ananya, wait. He was hot on my heels. Please just hear me out. Why? I barked at him when we were outside at my garden. Because you would so patiently listen to me when I had come to you. He began saying, but I cut him off. What had you said that day? I pretended to think, then said, I am too old to be playing these games with you. What kind of games was he playing now? I know, I fucked up, he said, reaching out to take my hand in his. I recoiled at his touch and he held his hands up in surrender. How bloody convenient. I scoffed and turned around to leave. Instead of grabbing my arm, he followed me to the heart of the garden. I wanted to step inside my house and shut the door in his face, but my feet had begun to betray me. So I stood at the entrance to the flat, imprisoned by my own complex burden of emotions. It was quieter in the garden, and even though I was facing away from him, I could hear his voice clear as a day. I knew I loved you. I was just too scared to admit it, he was saying from behind me. I could have pushed the door open and left. I knew he would not have physically tried to stop me, but I could not drown out the little voice of longing that had to began to ring in my ears. You went and got engaged, Adar, I said, the hurt seeping through my voice. I am supposed to believe all that's just over. It has been for over 2 weeks now. His voice was gentler as he turned me around to face him. How do I know you won't change your mind again and go marry the very next girl you melding parents find you? I demanded, still too raw to let down my guard. To It was too hard for me to meet his eye. I knew my resolve would crumble under his toasty gaze. Hey, don't sit on my parents, he said, holding up one finger and angling his face to the right. They were the ones who found you in the first place. Despite my best efforts to control my facial muscles, a smile slipped out. Other face light up. Can we just start over? His expression was Solomon, his eyes penetrative. How do you propose we do that? I asked, crossing my arms in front of my chest. Well, he said, rubbing his forehead in thoughts. You could let me take you out on a date. I said, pretending to mull it over. Or I could go inside right now and hit your parents with a rista. He teased. The choice is yours. Oh God, I held my hand up. No ristas, please. I had no clue when or how our fight had dissolved into the familiar territory of cheerful banter, but I could not deny that I was thankful for it. Relief too. Relief too was almost palpable. He pulled me into his arms with one light tug on my wrist. I am sorry, Ananya, he whispered as he looked down at me for being such a dud about this. A dud? I think you mean a complete dickhead, Dutchbag, maybe, or who I know, I said, enjoying the proximity between our faces. A diddlo? He watched me for a few seconds, amused, before bending down to shut me up. When his lips met mine, they did not carry the same urgency they had from the night of the best man reception. They were patient and leisurely, as if they knew they had all the time in the world to be pressed against mine. If my life was a rom-com, I would be safe in the knowledge that a happily ever after awaited me after the turn of this page. I would open my heart to this man, love him, be loved by him, maybe pass on that love to a couple of young ones, grow old with him, and spend my life knowing I could not have asked for more. But this is not that kind of a story. This is a story about a bet. Does this mean I won? I asked, and he threw his head back in a laughter. ओके तो एक्नॉलेजमेंट्स भी पढ़ के मैं आपको बता देती हूँ. They say the best thing in life are shared, and this book is no exception. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to all the amazing people who have walked this path with me. First, I would like to thank my mom and dad for believing in my dreams more than I ever dared to, for being my greatest source of strength, and of course, for having a love story so epic that it turned me into the sappy, messy, happy ending writer I am today. Thank you to my best friends Sonakshi, Himani and Soumya for being my biggest cheerleaders and my rock solid support system. Thank you to the love of my life, Gitansu, for holding my hand through every rejection, and more importantly, for putting up with my moody, self-doubting self throughout this journey. I am deeply grateful to my literary agent Kaniska Gupta for taking a chance on me. This book may have never seen the light of day had it not been for your faith in the little old me. A heartfelt thank you to Chirag Thakur, my publisher, for seeing potential in my work and for providing the platform to share my story with the world. To the early readers and supporters of this book, Siddharth Jain and Mirlani Jain, your encouragement was crucial during the times I needed it the most. It has taken me a decade to write this book, mostly because of all the time I spent not writing it. Thank you to the all people who helped me get over my fear of failure and motivated me to keep doing. And lastly, thank you to my Baba, my grandfather, for getting me to the finish line. Had it not been for your creative incentives and support, I would have been stuck on chapter 12 forever. So, this is the author who write this book, राधिका अग्रवाल. सो हम इनके बारे में भी जान लेते हैं थोड़ा सा. राधिका अग्रवाल इज a journalist and writer of Conade Nast, India and Grazia, India. Her love for romance as a genre comes from the innumerable Meg Cobbetts and Sophia Kinsell's she devoured as a teenager, as well as the epic love story of her own parents. She lives, dreams and writes love stories with a vagueness and believes that she can help romance get the respect and attention it deserves as genre. Red Flags and Rishtas is her first book. Radhika can be reached at, तो ये उनका ईमेल है और ये उनके इंस्टाग्राम आईडी है. तो यहाँ पे हमारी ये बुक ख़त्म होती है. अगर आपकी कोई फेवरेट बुक है तो आप कमेंट कर सकते हैं. नेक्स्ट वीडियो उस पर ही बनेगी, आई प्रॉमिस यू. फॉर नाउ, गुड बाय, थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग एंड डोंट फॉरगेट टू लाइक, शेयर एंड कमेंट.